Has the Stars' top line taken a massive dip this season as the line shuffling continues and the Stars need Stankoven or Bourque to step up as they prepare for a 4-game homestand?
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Over the past couple of seasons here in Dallas, the Stars have had one of the best top lines in the entire NHL, and that consisted of Jason Robertson, Roope Hintz, and Joe Pavelski. But since Pav retired, the Stars have tried a couple of different things. So where does that top line rank now amongst the best top lines in the NHL? We'll get to that on today's episode. We'll talk about some of the lines, and I want to talk about what trios I would use if I was head coach Pete DeBoer as well as we begin this 4-game homestand. I want to thank you for joining me on this Thursday edition of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. So let's get into some of the best top lines in the NHL. So The Athletic put out this article and they share some of the advanced numbers, and they use 5v5 goal differential to rank the best top lines in the NHL. And there are some surprises in here, which I want to get to. And then, of course, we'll bring it back to the Stars' top line. Columbus actually has the highest 5v5 goal differential, 2.54. And a large part of that is Marchenko, who the Stars got a firsthand look at the other day, who put up a couple of goals against them. But Columbus ranks at the top of 5v5 goal differential. Vegas is right there along with Tampa Bay. There is an interesting dilemma when you look at Edmonton, who has a 5v5 goal differential of 0. And some of this factors in, you can be unlucky on your finishing, and also if your goaltending is not very good. But let's bring it back to the Stars here. The Stars rank 18th, 2.79 goals for per 60, 2.42 goals against per 60, and that's a 5v5 goal differential of 0.37. And they mentioned in this article that the Stars in years past have been amongst the best in the NHL, and that is not the case. Some of that has to do with the slow start of Jason Robertson and Roope Hintz, but they do mention Robertson is on an obscene scoring tear since January 1st, but the Stars' top line isn't pushing an elite goal differential like it has in years past. With that said, Dallas has among the best second and third lines in the NHL, so this drop-off isn't too concerning. And when your top line can be supported by a trio, let's say Marchment, Duchesne, and Seguin, it takes a lot of the pressure off Robo and Roope to be as elite as they have been in years past. And we've had this discussion this season. Maybe Pav really was the straw that stirred the drink for that top line, albeit Robertson is starting to find his game once again and looking like that 40-plus goal scorer we saw from a few seasons ago. Also, what I think has had an effect on the line's production as a whole and possibly their 5-on-5 play is just the shuffling of right wingers. They haven't found a perfect fit yet. And I want to get to this in just a bit, but the Stars really need Stankoven or Bourque to step up because they have not produced to their expectations coming into this season. And maybe the expectations were too high, but they have been a bit underwhelming in terms of their point total. Stankoven has 26 points in 55 games. Mavrik Bourque has 19 points in 52 games, but Bourque is becoming more comfortable, and we've taken it slow with him as he tries to get more comfortable at the NHL level, and it was always going to be a process. We probably thought too highly of what he could be coming into this season because of what he did last year in the AHL, but this is the big boy league now, and it was going to take some time. Stankoven, on the other hand, has been underwhelming. I thought he was going to have a huge breakout season. I think a lot of that is some unluckiness with him, because if you look at the Stars' expected goals numbers, Stankoven is second on the Stars, 11.85, behind Wyatt Johnston at 12.4. He just hasn't found the back of the net enough, and it's a combination of fantastic goaltending and a combination of just lacking the finishing touch. But at the end of the day, Stankoven needs to score more, especially just 7 goals in 55 games. You would think he should probably have about at least 15 by now, when you look at players like Evgeny Dodonov, who were probably overseeding expectations, got 16 goals this season. But they really need Stankoven or Bourque to step up, where they can find a partner on that right side for Hintz and Robertson. I think the Stars have had to shuffle around too much, and some of that is injuries, of course, but they have plenty of options that they can throw on that top line. And funny enough, you look at some of the expected goals for numbers, Robertson, Hintz, and Dodonov ranks third on the Stars. They've played 160 minutes together, 7.8 expected goals for. The expected goals against is 7.4, which is not as good as Robertson, Hintz, and Johnston. But ideally, I think they would like to have Johnston center one of the trios. But they haven't been able to find a perfect partner for Robertson and Hintz. So I think Pete feels the need to put Johnston on that line to try to get them going and to move Stankoven or Bourque down the lineup, right? Whatever the case may be. So when you look at the Stars top line, yes, it has dipped from seasons past, but I think it's a combination of them not having just a set line. You look at Duchesne, Marchment, and Seguin coming into this season, it was easy for them to be, quote unquote, the Stars top line. They had played together all of last year. There was that chemistry. There was that production that they can lean on, and they came out of the blocks on fire. And Robertson and Hintz had to get used to not playing along with Pavelski, who was so cerebral and just played a different game because he didn't have to rely on his speed. And Roope was forced to sort of drive a lot of the play, and he's still forced to do that. But when you have Johnston on that line, I think it puts Roope in a bit of a different role. Of course, he always has that speed. He can push back the defense. He's someone that you have to account for because he can burn you if you're on your heels. But when Johnston is out there making plays and he's an excellent forechecker too, Hintz, I wouldn't clarify him, or I wouldn't describe him as just an insane forechecker. Of course, he uses his speed, but he doesn't play like a physical heavy game like Mason Marchment. So if you can pair Robertson and Hintz with a Stankoven that can just get in and buzz around on the forecheck and create some havoc, I think that's an ideal option. But at the same time, they need him to score and they need him to be productive. And they're not going to give him those chances if he's not producing. But you look at the lines at practice today, thanks to Sam Nessler, Robertson, Hintz, and Stankoven was put together. So it looks like they're going to try that trio for the time being. It seems to be a fourth line by committee recently. So we saw Stankoven get healthy scratch. Then it was Oscar Beck, and Steele, Blackwell, and Bourque were a part of the fourth line, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with, because I've really enjoyed what Mavrik Bourque has done recently. I think he continues to get better. So it seems almost counterintuitive to drop him in the lineup, but they have to try to work Stankoven in somewhere. And I think they would love for Stankoven to stay on that top line, but it all comes down to what is the production going to look like? And if Hintz and Robertson continue to do their thing, well, they can just be a dynamic duo. And maybe I'm putting too much thought into it. Maybe you don't have to worry about who's going to be on your right wing. You just need someone to supplement or support the duo of Robertson and Hintz that is playing pretty remarkable here in the last month or so. But they are not one of the top lines in the NHL, but doesn't mean they can't get to that based off what we've seen from Stankoven this season. Again, I'll reiterate, 11.85 expected goals for Stankoven. That's second on the team behind Wyatt Johnston. So it's not that Stankoven hasn't been getting looks or chances. He just cannot find the back of the net. He's been snake bitten for most of the season, but there's a good combination of guys. There's kind of a cluster. Dodonov, Hintz, and Jamie Benn are all within, 1.00 expected goals. So, Johnston has sort of separated himself, even along with Stankoven, has sort of separated themselves from the pack. It's just not hitting twine enough. And maybe that will start to change. And if you can get Stankoven going, and if you look at the Robertson, Hintz, Stankoven trio, their expected goals per 60 minutes is rather high. It's fourth among lines that's played at least 60 minutes, 3.26. And their expected goals against isn't bad either. It's at 3, not a huge differential. But they rank these top lines based off your number one center or the player that has spent the most time on ice in that top line. So Roope Hintz was the number one center for Dallas. So it takes to account all the different wingers, and it also says it can be a bit a bit deceiving depending on what type of goaltending you get to, and if you're unlucky. And of course, Stankoven has been a bit unlucky, but you have to take take it in stride too, that the Stars' second and third lines are incredible, and they rank among the best in the NHL too, and that's a good thing too. That's a positive. So speaking of the trios, I want to throw something out there. I sat down for a bit, thought about the different combinations, and I'm curious if this could solve some of the problems. Not that there is any problems up front, but could sort of solve some of the hodgepodge that is the fourth line, and then Stankoven and Bourque as well. And we'll do that in just a moment. If you're like many Americans, you have to start your mornings with a cup of good coffee. But sometimes you get tired of settling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. That's why a lot of Americans have turned to Trade. And let me tell you why. The coffee is next level. It's the number one specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're into new types of coffee or you know exactly what you want, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. I'm not someone that drinks a ton of coffee, but I've heard from other Locked On hosts who have had a chance to try this. They absolutely love it and have started to use it in the mornings. I usually go for another source of caffeine, but Trade Coffee has been a favorite among a lot of Locked On hosts recently, and they haven't gone back to what they used before. So right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. So you might as well go out to the website and try it. 40% off. Give it a chance. Trade Coffee is the new thing. That's DrinkTrade, GRADE.com. TRADE.com. That's drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. So I have some line combinations I want to throw out there. And some of these do stem on the Stars needing Bourque or Stankoven to step up and force themselves into a role on any particular line, whether that's Stankoven on the top line, whether Bourque gets that opportunity to stay with the top line, because they've had sort of auditions, but haven't grabbed the bull by the horns yet. So here are some of the lines once again from practice. They had Robertson, Hintz, Stankoven, Marchment, Duchesne, Granlund, Ben, Johnston, Dodonov, and then Blackwell, Steele, Bourque, and they had Beck along with that fourth line as well. So my goal here is to break up the Ben, Johnston, Dodonov line, which isn't horrific by any means, but I just feel like the Stars have an opportunity to get a lot more out of their forward group, because Dodonov, yes, has had a great season. I mean, 16 goals, you can't complain. You know, Jamie Benn's been just fine with 38 points in 58 games, but they want Johnston to center a line is why I believe they don't have Wyatt playing up with Hintz and Robertson. I think he's a lot more versatile as a center too, but at the same time, this is why it's dependent on Stankoven and Bourque to sort of take role of that right side or even their own trio somewhere. I know Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment have looked good and they've had great chemistry. Duchesne, Granlund has played pretty well since they've joined, since Granlund was acquired. But I think that line just leaves a lot to be desired. It doesn't have a real trait or characteristic of the line. It's, you know, you got some speed with Dodonov, you know, Ben is Ben, and Wyatt's really your only guy that has some dynamic ability and can create some havocs. I think if you move Granlund down to that line with Johnston and Ben, you can move Dodonov up to Duchesne and Marchment. This isn't about demoting Dodonov, who has been a decent piece, but we all know what Duchesne and Marchment bring, and that is playmaking ability and someone that is one of the, you know, the best forecheckers on the Stars. So then Dodonov can really complement Duchesne and Marchment. And then by moving Granlund down with Johnston and Ben, you give Johnston another winger or another partner that can play with the puck on his stick, that is really positive with possession. And he's also a playmaker. He loves to dish. So it will give Jamie Benn and Johnston a lot of opportunities offensively to get scoring chances, because Granlund likes to play with the puck on his stick and he can create. And by moving Granlund down to that line, you know, Duchesne is that guy for that trio. He drives that line, and Marchment as well with just his overall physicality. You put Dodonov on that line, who then gives them some speed. He's just that scoring winger, sort of to what Granlund is, but not as reliant. Dodonov's not as reliant with the puck on his stick. I think he's someone that wants to stretch the ice out and can kind of play that sort of hybrid cherry pick role as a winger. So I think Granlund being on a line with Johnston and Ben would give that line a different dynamic and really give you three solid lines that can score. And you just have more playmakers that I think will open up the ice for players like Ben and players like Johnston as well, who can use as much help as possible. Because with Dodonov on that line with Ben and Johnston, I think you're asking Johnston to do a lot. You're asking him to create plays. You're asking him to sort of be a large part of the forecheck. And Jamie Benn can do that, but he's not going to do it as willingly, 60 minutes a contest or every shift he's out there. Like, look, it's a long season. You're asking a lot out of Johnston and to try to get that line going. I think having Granlund with him gives him some support. Don't ask Johnston to do as much. And Dodonov can just be that complementary piece. He's sort of that Swiss Army knife anyways. So you can kind of move him up and down. We've seen it with the top line, as I mentioned last segment, and he's had some decent numbers with Ben or with Robertson and Hintz. So I would love to see Granlund play alongside Johnston and Ben just to see if there's anything there. You know, the fourth line, it's going to be the fourth line. I think Oscar Beck down the middle. You got Sam Steele, and I would like to have Mavrik Bourque. Blackwell has played well here over the last 2 games, but Bourque has played really well, and I think he's earned an opportunity to at least be in the lineup right now. Scored a great goal against Columbus the other night, just charging to the net, and he scored a lot of those type of goals. And you can't say that for a lot of different stars, a lot of different forwards. A lot of his goals have been, right on top of the crease, and Dallas needs some of that. So I think he's deserved to stay in the lineup. It's tough decisions for De Boer. You're not going to take Steele out. I think he's just kind of a staple. I think Blackwell would be the odd man out. But I'm curious what you think of those trios. I would keep Hintz, Robertson, Stankoven. I do like that top line. I'm just talking really about flipping Granlund into Donov, and I think it can open up some offense for Johnson's line number 1. And I think with Duchesne and Marchment, the way they play, it would suit Dodonov really well, and Dodonov could just be a complementary piece to that trio. But I understand Duchesne and Granlund have played together before, so there is some of that chemistry. But right now, might as well try some things. The defense is kind of meh right now, and look, I get it. They're trying to win games and trying to solidify a spot in the Central, but maybe there's some time to just throw some different things out there. Why you're going to be struggling on the back end because of your personnel. You can see what you have up front a bit more. And at the same time, they've shuffled a lot, and it hasn't been consistent, but I think they need to find something consistent before the end of the season. So going into the year, okay, here's our set lines. And if it goes haywire, you can always move back and shuffle around. We've seen De Boer do that a ton in this past few years here. He's not afraid to shuffle up lines. We saw that last game against Columbus when they were trying to get something, although the offense really wasn't the issue. He scored 4 goals. Maybe you could stop the puck from going into your back here net a bit more, and you wouldn't have to worry about that, your offense, which really wasn't an issue. So anyways, those are just some trios I was mulling around in my head. And, I thought moving Granlund with Johnson and Ben on paper, at least in my eyes, looks like a pretty good line. Kind of reminds me of like if you got Zuccarello. Remember Zuccarello came to Dallas and immediately fit in perfectly. Like Granlund, I kind of see Zuccarello's similar type of player, a little bit undersized, playmaker, great facilitator. And it takes a little bit more pressure off of Johnston. He's already playing a lot. he's on a power play. He's on the PK. Takes a bit more pressure off him because I don't think Dodonov and Ben, both of them, complement what Wyatt can do. Although Wyatt can do a lot by himself because he is a fantastic player, and we've seen that. But you can give your young center iceman a chance to be more successful and keep him rather than having to continue to play him at right wing with Hintz and Robertson. Because I think as a center, he's a lot more valuable to Dallas this season. That's for sure. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. I have all the answers, right? That's why you tune in to Locked On Stars every single day. And I appreciate you everydayers out there. Okay. Stars are back home, though, for a 4-game homestand, which is fantastic. Jake Ottinger hasn't been home in like a month. So that is nice as the Stars get prepared for a 4-game road trip. We do have an update on Lian Bichsel, so we'll get to that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or just want to bet on that fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You get live play-by-play with FanDuel, which is so much fun. You can watch the game and predict and bet on things as you watch, whether that's the Mavericks or another team in the NBA. If you've kind of sworn off the Mavericks after the Doncic trade. But FanDuel is so easy to use. It takes 30 seconds to download. It's available on your smartphone. Go ahead and get it. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So we do have an update on Lian Bichsel. This comes from Robert Tiffin via Pete DeBoer. So shout out to Mr. Tiffin. That's DeBoer noted Lian Bichsel has had no setbacks in concussion protocol and is going to begin skating tomorrow, which is Friday, which fits with the timeline we discussed in his piece yesterday. If you have not read Tiffin's article from a day ago, make sure to go check that out. So it's a 5 to 6 day minimum. And DeBoer did note that he would be back in the lineup sooner rather than later. So we can be thankful for that it isn't too serious. Was it a bit of an overreaction the other day after the Columbus game? Yes, but I thought it was warranted because Stars defense is still a bit poor, even with Bichsel in the lineup. But Bichsel, I think, can cover up a lot of the issues. And I think that's been shown here, even in this little sample size just coming out of the break. But a lot of good teams coming to Dallas, and some teams that are still right in the thick of things in the postseason conversation. So they start with LA on Friday, and the Stars played the Kings just before the break, and that was a wonky game where they lost in overtime. But then you got St. Louis, who put a touchdown on Seattle the other day. They're 5 points out of a playoff spot. So this week and a week and a half leading up to the trade deadline is going to be big for them, whether they decide to buy or not. And then you have New Jersey again, and Calgary. And as it stands, Calgary is a point outside of the second wild card position, just 1 point behind Vancouver with a game in hand. Did not see Calgary having a solid season, but they have been able to piece some things together, and their rookie netminder is doing fantastic. But you look at that second wildcard spot, Vancouver or Calgary, one team is probably going to get in with a negative goal differential, and it's more than likely going to be that second wildcard spot. Vancouver's -13, Calgary's -14. Utah's still kind of hanging in, and they're -12. St. Louis is -11. So not a ton of quality, but you're going to get a desperate Flames team that is fighting to get into the postseason. St. Louis the same way, and we all know who LA and New Jersey has been this season. A couple of national televised games as well. Sunday against the Blues will be on TNT, and then Tuesday against the Devils on March 4th will be on ESPN+. So a big week and stretch upcoming for Dallas after a disappointing loss against the Blue Jackets. They're going to be without Bichsel here on Friday, so it'll be a tough ask out of this back end, who is just not phenomenal right now, right? They're going to have to outscore some of their problems. They could use great goaltending. That's a good thing about being home too. Like Otter has not been home for a few weeks. I think it came out that his girlfriend had to meet him in Boston with like a change of clothes so he could have enough to wear on the little 3-game East Coast road trip. So he's going to be rested, and he looked like it's been a while since he's had a home-cooked meal and been in his own bed, right? I think he's had a real shaky first 2 starts returning from break, but I mean, that's a long time to be on the road. That is a long time to live in hotel rooms. So he'll get well rested. I wouldn't be surprised if we see DeSmith tomorrow, just to give him a few extra days of rest. And then you have a divisional opponent on Sunday. So I'm curious to see how the goaltending situation is going to be dealt out, but do not be surprised if DeSmith gets the nod tomorrow against LA, just to give Otter a few more days of rest. But a great update on Lian Bichsel. he's a significant piece. And I have said over the last few weeks, I think he is a key, impactful player that could be the difference in the Stars winning a Stanley Cup this season because of how significant his game is and what he brings to the table, which is an edge and physicality that the Stars really need, and they probably need to go add something else at the deadline. Jim Nill has been on the record recently. He's done some interviews, and they're not looking to be too aggressive at the deadline, and the assets aren't necessarily there. But look, Nill always going to say that. He's always going to throw water on the flames, so to speak. He's always going to douse it. He knows. And that's why I believe they'll make a move. Maybe it isn't going to be a huge splash. Maybe it's just one move. Maybe it's two. I mean, look, they very well could not do anything and just kind of live with what they got. I think that would be a mistake. And you're wasting a year. And I don't think you're going to win a Stanley Cup currently constructed. But if that's the route they go, that's the route they go. And they try to address it in the offseason. And that'll be really frustrating. But that could certainly be the case. But look, I feel like we've been here before with Dallas, especially recently. He's always in the weeds. He's always going to strike at midnight, so to speak. He's never been one to be, we're looking for this guy. It doesn't put a lot of that out there. Look at the Tanev deal. That wasn't yes, we wanted Tanev, and I kept bringing him up. Tanev would be great, like a great piece. Like we discussed him as a player, but there wasn't like a ton of rumors up to the point of when that deal was made. It was kind of a surprise to some degree. I remember sitting down about to eat dinner, and I'm like, Tanev's a Dallas Star. I got to make an episode. He strikes when he wants to, and if he doesn't want it to get out, it's not going to get out. And I think that's just how the Stars front office operates. So going to be an intriguing time, that's for sure. But that'll wrap up a pretty nice, compact, filled episode of Locked On Stars on a Thursday. Want to thank you for joining me, as always, here on Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Really appreciate you listening. And thank you so much for engaging in the comments. I love reading all of your criticisms or just opinions on things, observations. The great thing about this community is it's just really friendly, I feel like, at least in the comment section. Just a lot of great conversations going on. So I'd love to hear your thoughts because we all see the game differently, right? I hope I don't come on and make it seem like I know better than anybody else. I try to provide solutions and answers because that's what I'm here for as a confidant of the Dallas Stars, although they could care less. But love hearing everybody else's opinions, of course. We all see the game differently, so we all see different needs for Dallas. So always love hearing others' observations and opinions on how we should go about this thing moving forward. But that'll do it. We'll see you tomorrow for a Friday edition of Locked On Stars. We'll preview the LA Kings and hopefully kick off this 4-game homestand on a high note. We'll see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.